Well, welcome everyone to the Multifamily and More virtual meetup. This is an interactive podcast where our goal is to provide the opportunity for our members to interact with high-level individuals in the real estate space, mindset space, you name it. And we've got a guy tonight that's gonna touch on all of it and is an absolute badass in all of it. So here's how it works tonight. So you have the chat box. Put your comments, your questions, interact with one another if you want in that chat box. I do ask, if you think of it, there's an option next to 2 where it says all panelists. If you can change that to all panelists and attendees, if you're comfortable with your questions, that'd be preferred, just so other people can see the interaction. But please post up in there. Why don't you pop in there right now and start putting where you're from? I know we got people from all over the country at this point, West Coast, the Midwest, the East. So I wouldn't mind seeing, got Texas, LA, Baltimore, another LA, Virginia, people from all over the place, Minneapolis, Lauderdale, good stuff. So, we got people from all over on here, and I really appreciate you guys joining. So comment there. I'll pull questions out and ask Matt as we go through the night. Tonight, we're gonna run a little bit earlier. Matt's got a meeting to get to, so we're gonna run between 8:45, 8:50 Eastern, 5:45, 5:50 his time. And then at the end of Matt's part, Phil Capron's gonna jump on like he did last month. That really worked out well. So Phil's going to come on. We're going to be bringing on a guy named Darin Mangum, who is an attorney who specializes in setting up syndication, setting up funds. He's going to go through the real, deep stuff, 506Bs and Cs, all of that stuff. He's got offices all over the country, even one in Puerto Rico. He's my attorney, so he agreed to do this, probably for some fee I'm unaware of at this point. But that's that.
The billable hour.
That's right. It's a billable hour. So, all right. So tonight's sponsor is going to be CF Asset Group. It's a multifamily holding company. Visit cfassetgroup.com for video content, links to various multifamily and more communities. We have 7 of them currently, including Michigan that I'm in. I have six others throughout the country, over 1,000 members at this point. So I appreciate everybody joining. And if you haven't joined one of the groups in your local market, feel free to jump on CF Asset Group and check it out. CF Asset Group is building wealth through multifamily. So all that aside, let's introduce our guest tonight. So Matty, I'm going to read a little bit of your bio, then we'll get into it. So Matty A, as he's known, is a multimillionaire millennial entrepreneur. I added the multimillionaire in there. A 7-figure real estate investor, a speaker, an avid adventurist, but as he says, most importantly, a devoted husband and father to 2 beautiful young girls. And he is one of the guys that does it right as far as balancing his life with his business and everything else. Incredible story that we're going to get to. So welcome Matty A.
Hey man, it's a pleasure to be here, Jamie. Thanks for having me, brother.
Absolutely. So let's dive into some background. You have quite the story. So if you don't mind giving us kind of a blow by blow of your background.
Sure. You want me to, how far would you like me to go back?
Yeah, go from the beginning. Where'd you grow up, and
Sure.
and how did you kind of arrive at where you are today?
Yeah, so I'm originally from Northern California, here in Sacramento, California, which is where I'm located at right now. And I'll take you guys back to really where my journey of intentional living and kind of pursuing my definition of what I call my own rich life started, which was my senior year of high school. I was an athlete, was coming out of one of my basketball practices, and my mom calls me, rushes me out of a basketball practice and basically says, I need to take you to the hospital. We need to go to the hospital right now. Your stepmom who was great friends with my mom, who was a big part of my life since I was about 3 years old, was in the hospital, in the ER. They had done an emergency tracheotomy on her, and basically we found out within 24 hours that she had a rare form of leukemia. She was diagnosed on a Monday, and she passed away that Saturday. So I had watched somebody who I thought had done life right, never smoked, never drank, worked in charities, was very, very intentional about, her health and her eating and giving back to other individuals and just doing all the right stuff. And she just got, what I thought was a very poor hand dealt to her for whatever reason I couldn't understand at that time. And that's really when I started to actually rebel, going, hey, if somebody can do it all right, and everybody's told me this is the way it's got to be in order to get what you want to get, and that happens to you, then screw it. I am going to do my own thing. So I actually ended up starting getting more involved in drugs and alcohol, and kind of running with some of the wrong crowds on the weekends, doing some extracurriculars on the weekends. And I'd still had a lot of these goals and ambitions, but I was also not necessarily walking the path that was going to get me there. And so a lot of the audio and things that I was talking about were not aligned with my video and how my actions were actually playing out in my life. And I ended up getting my second week of my senior year of high school. I ended up getting, our second month, I ended up getting expelled from high school. So I finished high school at a continuation high school, and I had to basically go through this entire wash list. I was a 4.0 student. I was an athlete that was, very, I guess high up on the honor roll and things like that. And, but I was just making poor decisions, and I ended up essentially getting expelled from high school, avoiding going to jail because I was 17 years old at the time. And I ended up going through this entire checklist in order to have that expunged from my record so I could actually still get into colleges and go to school, which I still wanted to do. And I got through, I graduated at a continuation high school, and I ended up, thank you. Oh, you're good. I ended up going to, thanks buddy. Ended up going to UC Santa Barbara, and I kind of got my second chance. And I kind of fell back into some same patterns and habits. And I always thought, man, lightning doesn't strike twice in the same spot. So, I'm probably not going to get in trouble for doing some of these same things. I learned my lesson, and I ended up getting into a physical altercation, drug and alcohol induced. And I remember waking up in Santa Barbara County Correction jail, and I looked to my left, and there's this big biker dude in leathers with the handlebar mustache. I look to my right, there is like this Hispanic dude who's got face tattoos. I look over in the corner, and there's a guy throwing up. There's a guy pooping on himself. And very quickly, my reality came to the forefront that this was my new environment. This was my new tribe, and I was facing what I later found out was it was a 4-year penalty of being in jail and sentence. And I was scared shitless of what my future and my reality looked like. And I vowed that if God had ever, because I was, raised in somewhat of a Christian household, if I was ever given a second chance after this, a kind of second chance to my second chance, that I was not going to waste that. And I ended up kind of going through the court system, and I basically, by the luck of God, I was able to, essentially the charges were dropped. And after 6 or 7 months of kind of not knowing what was going to happen, how long I was going to spend time in jail for, I got out. And that was the day that I remember, talking to my dad on the phone, and he said, "You are not the person that you are. Don't confuse your circumstances right now with where you're going, and your past doesn't have to equal your future." And I think we've all heard that analogy of kind of the rear view mirror and the windshield. And if all you did was focus on the rear view mirror and everything that's going on behind you, you're going to lose sight of the vision and what's in front of you and what you have to look forward to. And I was ready to have both hands on the steering wheel and focus on my vision and my future moving forward. So I got out of jail, and I ended up getting like 13 job interviews in that first week, pretty much anywhere and any place that would take me. And it was a small business owner who was selling insurance to certificated and classified employees. So insurance to firefighters and to policemen and to individuals that kind of worked for public services and municipalities and the departments. And I got hired on as a cold caller. And so that was my first kind of job. I worked 40 hours a week and worked my way up to being his right-hand man over the next 3 years while I was in college. And that was kind of my first exposure to entrepreneurship and what it's like to kind of run a business and to make an impact in people's lives, and to kind of have the freedom and flexibility that went along with it, and to not have any kind of ceiling or, cap on what you could make income wise, to still have this kind of sexiness of entrepreneurship. And, he had a sailboat, and we would go out on the sailboat. And so I got a taste of that. And he wanted me to take over his business when I was graduating from UC Santa Barbara. And he kind of showed me too much. He showed me the deck, and I knew that I wanted to stack the deck in my favor. So I kind of made this hit list of all the things that I wanted to achieve in a real estate career. And as I kind of made this list of all of these things, it was, the freedom and flexibility to be your own boss, no ceiling on what you could make financially, to make an impact and help other people achieve their goals, since I had kind of done the opposite for a good chunk of my life, to be able to still have kind of that time and those experiences. But the last one that I wrote down was to not only do all those things, but to do all those things while I could generate and create wealth. So not just make an income, but to create wealth. And when I was doing all this research on what career path would actually allow me to do that, it was real estate. In my degree, I was, applying at all these different places for a $30,000, $40,000 job, and I wasn't even getting hired for those. So I was like, I might as well go out and take this leap of faith on entrepreneurship and real estate. And I ended up going and working, we call it South Sac, Iraq, being that in South Sacramento, it's one of the worst areas. I went to this brokerage where I was the only white guy in the office out of 200 agents, and absolutely loved it. We actually had bullets fly through our window one day and almost hit our receptionist. So that kind of gives you an idea of kind of the area that I was working in. But I was commuting 45 minutes from the suburbs every single day to be mentored by this one guy. And he was my very first mentor. I didn't really know what a mentor was at that time or kind of what that classification meant. And he ended up connecting me with a real estate flipper. And so I worked for this guy for about 9 months for free because I was still going through my licensing and still learning. And I was kind of just, I don't want to say I was getting taken advantage of without knowing it, but I was also getting some education, which looking back, it was the best education I'd ever received. And it was that time where it really shortened my learning curve. It accelerated me getting results that was really going to pay off, in the long run, getting connected into the network and the ecosystem of real estate. And fast forward, I ended up finding my business partner in that office, and she was the second Caucasian person in the office. And I said, she had a master's degree. She had all of these accolades, and she was making $14 an hour working at the front office. And I was like, you need to get your license and we need to team up. So long story short, within 5 years, 2 of those years, we were Wall Street Journal top 1,000 real estate teams, 2 back-to-back years. We were doing about 50 million in real estate volume. I started flipping houses after learning from that guy. I saw he was making, 50,000 a pop, and he was listening with me for about, an $8,000 commission. I said, I'm on the wrong side of this transaction. So I started flipping houses, a couple hundred houses later, flipping those houses using other people's money. I was starting to pick up rentals along the way. I partnered with a contractor, and we've built up a multi-million-dollar construction company that is basically the Warren Buffett model, right? I read Snowball and saw that he kind of had this head of the snake and all these ancillary businesses and buckets of income around the tree trunk, which was, for me, real estate, right? So I started thinking about property management and flips and rentals and construction and consulting and coaching and all of these different things. So that's kind of been my business model and ecosystem that I've been building up over the last, really, I got into real estate in 2011. Bought my first rental property when I was 22, and been flipping and buying rentals. I just bought my first retail strip center. Just closed on a triplex today. That a good friend who's on this training right now, Mr. Austin Linney, has been helping me with. So real estate has become my passion, and yet people ask me, is it my purpose? And I tell them, no, it's not my purpose. It's a passion because it's become a vehicle for me and a platform for me that allows me to generate wealth to actually go chase my purpose. And my purpose is to help other people walk with passion and intentionality in their life and designing their rich life. Because I believe everybody's got a different definition of what a rich life looks like, right? Whether that's chilling on a beach, 6 months out of the year, whether that's grinding 90 hours a week in your business, whether that's, having some kind of balance with family and friends. I believe a rich life is having rich relationships, personal and professional, rich income and investments, having community and contribution around you, and having rich health, mental, physical, and spiritual. And so that's kind of how I've designed and architected my own life, and try and give people tools, resources, and spaces to discover what that is for their life. And that led me to being here on Jamie Gruber's podcast today.
That's the place to be. This is the culmination.
This is the place to be, man.
That's it. And just to be clear on this, you're barely 30.
Yeah, actually my birthday's this week. So I'm turning 31. I'm turning 31 this next week.
That is a lot of life packed into a short amount of time. That's impressive. It's an incredible resume. I've heard most of it before, but every time I think about it, I'm like, but he's 30. He's 30. It's unbelievable to me. So, I mean, congrats to you, because that's incredible. Before we dive into the real estate space, because that's where we want to get to, I just want to spend a couple seconds on mindset. I wrote down Austin's name, by the way, because I know he's on here, and he is an unabashed fanboy of yours. So I figured I'd call him out on that point. So love you, Austin. He's here. He's here for you. Let's talk about, you mentioned, like the change in life that you went through, right? You had that kind of emotional experience and you transitioned your life. That was a big thing, right? You were going down the path of potentially jail time to now, you're this different person. I guess the question is, there's a lot of smaller things that I think people need to do, like that little 1 degree change in their trajectory to see that long-term change in whatever they're trying to become or whatever they're trying to accomplish. Yours is an extreme example. How do you ensure that you maintain it? How do you go through a transformation? How did you know what I mean? Like, do you have to have an emotional experience from your perspective, or how do you become a morning person? How do you bake in rituals that you think would serve you? I'm just kind of curious what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I mean, I could give you all the cliched answers of you got to have a why, and you got to have a vision, and you have to have all these things, right? Which I believe are extremely important. But I think everybody has an awakening where they're so tired of what is, and they're more connected to what can be, right? And so that's where, how do you know you made a choice? You take a different action than you've been taking consistently over and over and over again. And I was taking many consistent actions that were just getting me the same results, and were actually just really negatively moving me in the direction that was away from all of the things that I said that I wanted. So kind of going back to the, your video has to match your audio. I know a lot of people that can talk a great game. They can sell ice to an Eskimo. They can trick themselves into believing what they're saying is actually the truth, when the reality is, right, until you are convicted enough to do something differently every single day and build disciplines and habits and an ecosystem and environment and resources and tools around you that are conducive and congruent and supportive to that, and you take action on it every single day, nothing's going to change. So for me, the number one thing that, I see missing from a lot of people's lives when we talk about transformation is people say they don't know where to start. Well, they don't know where to start because they don't even know where they're trying to go. So the number one thing that I work on with a lot of people, and I talk about a lot, is first and foremost, you need to get very, 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 very clear in what your definition of a rich life looks like. Whether that is maybe just a goal from a year out. I like to write a 5-year vision every single year. I rewrite my 5-year vision. Really, I just kind of 2.0 it, right? The first time you do it, it'll be a first draft for you. And then every single year, you just kick the can down maybe a little bit further down the road, and you optimize and you 2.0 what that looks like, because you're going to be chipping away at that, right? So for me, it's one of those things where I had to get really clear on what it actually was that I wanted, right? Like, and for me, it was, what do I want my relationships to look like? What do I want my wealth to look like? What do I want my business to look like? What do I want my community to look like? What do I want my environment to look like? Like, I had to get crystal clear on what all of those things were, because once you get crystal clear on what that is, that just becomes your North Star. It becomes everything. You're so clear on what it is that you're moving towards that for me, it became very, very easy to say, this is either in alignment with that North Star, or this is an enemy of that North Star. This is either going to get me closer to getting to that life and achieving those goals and becoming that person, or this is moving me away from it. It's a distraction to me. And that was the first step, was just getting clear on what that was. I never even stopped and paused and took the time to reflect and dream. Like, I'd always kind of talked about, like, hey, what is it that you want? Oh, I want to make more money. Well, how much money do you want to make? How are you going to make that money? In what space are you making that money? With who are you making that money? Right? So those were some of the things where a lot of people don't even stop and give themselves space or permission to actually dream about what that stuff looks like. So if you're trying to figure out, like, how do I transform into this person? Well, based on your goals and what that vision might look like and what your rich life looks like, then that might determine exactly what kind of plan you create and map out, and who you involve in your life and who you cut out of your life, and the things that you do and the places you go and the trainings and the books and the podcasts, right? So for me, it was a lot of the things that I was saying I wanted, I really didn't know what that was. And then number two is there were so many things out of alignment. And when I started getting clear on that, it allowed me to just a little bit more and more, get more and more alignment. Decisions became more congruent with that person, with that life, with that vision. And over time, right, it's an evolution. It's not something you're going to sit down and be like, I know who I want to be and what I need to accomplish. It takes time, but I became so obsessed with figuring out what that looked like that I just got a little bit better each month, each year, every 2 years, every 3 years. And now, right, my vision has evolved from where I was when I was, a 19 or 18-year-old kid that was getting out of jail to now a 30-year-old with 2 daughters and a wife and all kinds of, great goals and ambitions, right? So I think the number one thing is give yourself permission to just stop and pause and actually get clear in what that is. And I call it my Rich Life Clarity Contract. And I have about, 100 questions on that contract and all of those different pillars that kind of invite me to dream and think about, like, where do I want to live? Who am I living with? What am I driving? What does my house look like? What does it smell like? Where's it located at, right? Like, how many times do I go out with my mom or my dad, or go out on a date with my wife, or hang out with my friends? What am I doing with my daughter? Like, these are things that we don't even think about. We're just like, hey, I need to make more money. I need to pay my bills. I need to do this and that. We don't really create that space to dream. So the transformation happens from getting so convicted and obsessed with what the destination could look like. And then the destination just gets a little bit bigger each and every time, a little bit further out, but it makes it a little bit easier to navigate the roadmap.
I love that. I was talking to a couple of guys on this call. They're on this call about this book I was reading called The Willpower Instinct. It's written by a Stanford professor. It's a great book. She talks about getting connected with your future self, with the future you, like the people who show a strong connection with who their future person, who that they can see them and feel them and know them. I guess treat them way better than, somebody who doesn't really see that view. So I'd say, I'll go to McDonald's today. I don't care about, the 50 or 60-year-old version of me. I care about me today. I can't picture that future version. And there's actually this great website. Anybody that's on here can jump on there. It's free. It's futureme.org. And you can go on. It's very clean. You can write an email to your future self on whatever it may be. So I popped in there and gave myself an email with a future date, like you said, a 5-year plan, kind of like a check-in. I'll get an email from myself on that date saying all this stuff, whatever it is, promises to myself or whatever it may be. So I think a lot of what you spoke to is aligned with that. We do have our first question here, Matt. So Jordan's asking about, pursuing your passion versus paying your bills. I think the genesis of this is, hey, yeah, I can get clear on what I want to do. How do I balance if what I want to do is, play video games all day or whatever, something that you don't immediately think of as monetizable? How do you balance pursuing your passion if that passion isn't immediately something you can make income from?
Yeah. So, and it's a great question. And one of the questions that I literally have on my mirror every day is, did you earn the right? And so for me, I think about whether it's hiring a new employee, whether it's taking a vacation or taking a certain amount of time off work, or, having a cheat day at, with a specific meal or whatever it may be, is, did I earn the right to go and do that? Yeah. And that's a really powerful question, and it reframes what actions you're going to give yourself permission to do. So when I see a lot of people that are chasing 10 different things and they're barely paying their bills, I'm like, dude, go freaking take care of your bills first. You didn't even earn the right to go and do all these other things. You didn't earn the right to go chase your passion yet, right? Like, go make sure the fort is secure first and foremost, and earn the right to go and do that stuff. Like, I wouldn't be building half the shit I'm building right now if I didn't have all these income streams and the security and the freedom, right, to earn the permission to go and do this stuff. That would be negligent of me, right? Now, you could go and grind on your paying the bills and the day-to-day job, right? And then work another 40 hours a week on top of that, being that there's a lot of hours in the week that you can still find time to go out and build and start chipping away at whatever it is that you're chasing, right? Chasing that passion, doing that thing. There is so much wasted time by us as human beings that we could, if we were more efficient and more effective, cover 2, 3. I mean, if you think about just cutting out TV, when I started cutting out TV, I literally calculated out the amount of time that I was watching TV to stopping that. I literally got back 25 days, almost a full month of hours back into my life. What could you do with an extra month? You cover a lot of freaking ground, right? So did I earn the right to go and do some of these things? So in the beginning, I would just say, be very clear on what are the most important things that you have to take care of them, right? And then from there, give yourself at this point, right? Be very clear on, hey, if I'm making $5,000 a month, right, and I'm working 40 hours a week, I give myself permission to go work on this or to go try this or to go do this. Hey, if I ate clean for 6 days out of the week, I give myself permission. I earn the right to go have a full cheat day or whatever it may be, right? So I just love that question because it gets you thinking, like, what does it take to earn the right to go and do that? And when you get clear on that, then you don't feel guilty or worried or, right, you know exactly when it's time to go and grind and work on the passion project or the thing that you really are getting fired up about versus worrying about being shameful or guilty because you're pulling away from the stuff that you really know you should be doing first and you're not taking care of that stuff because you're over here doing some of the other stuff. What does it take to earn the right?
I love it. I love it. That is fantastic advice, and what an answer to that question. Unprepped, and that was an incredible answer to that question. So thank you for that. All right, let's flip over to the real estate side of things. We're about halfway through at this point. So let's talk about your start in real estate. We already did. You mentioned why you started in flipping. I think what I want to get into is, I think a lot of people say, yeah, I'm going to flip a few houses, or I'm planning on flipping a couple of houses and taking that money and putting it into whatever, a multifamily property, whatever the case may be. To me, and you're the expert here, there's a distinct difference between flipping a few properties and building a business that, a real estate business that your core is to flip properties. Can you kind of go through the difference and how, what are the 3-4 steps, whatever it may be, some quick tips or advice on what somebody needs to do if they want to create the business around flipping or whatever it may be? Just your thoughts as an entrepreneur in that space.
Well, I think there's 2 ways to, you're either Saki quadrants, right? You're self-employed, which is really, you're just an employee for yourself and you're still a slave in your business. You're working in your business, or you're on the right quadrant, right, as a business owner or an investor. And so I think we all in the beginning, unless you got a lot of cash to throw at something and you have a chip that you can just put in your brain and say, I'm good at running P&Ls, I'm good at managing people, I'm a great leader, I'm a great communicator, I'm great at doing negotiating, right? You start off on the left quadrant. And so you are that individual who's just got to learn trial by fire. I don't like necessarily endorsing this now, but for me in the beginning it worked. And it's what I told myself was fake it till you make it, right? Like fake it till you make it. Just get in the game, and just keep feeling your way forward. And I just tried to feel my way forward as fast as I possibly could by learning from other people's mistakes, right? And having mentors and having good people around me. Obviously educating myself, but just taking consistent action. Like there's the law of attraction, which is like, oh, I'm going to become this great person. But I believe that law of attraction means absolutely nothing without the law of action. So I was just in the game, grinding every single day, being a slave for myself, working my own business. And as I started to really realize that there's no way that I'm going to be able to get to the level that I want to get to if I'm just the grinder myself. So the 2 ways you actually become a business owner and move over to the other quadrant is going to be people and processes. So do I have a system and a process that I could plug somebody else in who's equally as talented or more talented than me to duplicate this result, and then we can scale from there. So in the beginning, with only 24 hours in a day, we as human beings aren't scalable. So I started to get to a point where I was hitting my capacity, but I look at it as like a cup of water, right? It's like, if this cup starts to overflow because I have so much stuff going on and it's rocking and rolling, that's when I gave myself permission and earned the right to hire somebody and to bring on somebody that could follow a process that I created and documented, and through that person could go out and get that same result. So that is where I think a lot of people, they lack the ability to delegate. They lack the ability to actually track how they do something and the method to their madness. And they lack the ability to hire quality talent and actually empower that talent around them to go do it equally, if not better than them, so they can stay working on the business instead of in the business. So those were in the early years. It was a lot of grinding in the business and documenting and trying to duplicate and document and duplicate and then plug people in. Failing as a leader, learning as a leader, getting better as a leader, and just kind of working through the evolution of being a business owner, and not only the execution of the strategies, but then actually running and managing a real business and cash flow projections and accounting and tax strategizing and entity protection and all the things that you don't really think about when you're just like, hey, I just want to find another house to flip and make a little bit of money and go buy a rental. So those were some of the things that I think I was happy and fortunate that I learned earlier on, and that I was not attached to holding and hoarding responsibilities. The one thing I know about myself is I am not the smartest. I'm not the fastest. I'm not the strongest. I'm always open to learning from other people and humbling myself. And by doing that, that allowed me to fail a lot more rapidly, which allowed me to, I think, not only get results better, but it allowed me to cover more ground and attract people onto the bus that appreciated that and wanted to be a part of that. And so those were some of my thoughts in regards to how I was able to kind of scale my flipping business and start to actually run it like a business instead of just being kind of the, mom and pop-ish type investor model. It started to become something where we had systems and processes, and I operate maybe 5 to 10 hours in my flip business a week total. I would say maybe 10 max. And that's about it. And then I just check in with the people that I need to check in with.
Crazy. So it's sort of, what is it? Me, we, they, right? That the concept of you master it, then you get other people along with you to master it, and then you hand it off to them at some point, right?
I do, we do, they do. Yep.
I do, we do, they do. Right. Perfect. Let's see. We've got this question about the size of your flip. Do you have a number per year that you're flipping at this point, or what does that look like?
In my best year, I did 50. Last year I did 25. This year my goal is to do about 12, and I scaled my flipping business down in volume and quadrupled my price point. So essentially, my average price per deal was in the 250 to like 400 range. My average price per deal is anywhere from 900 to 1.3 right now. So I would rather do the same exact model, less work, and 2 or 3 times the amount of profit. Fortunately, I'm close to San Francisco, Silicon Valley, where it's just absolutely insane, right? Where literally the same exact house in Sacramento, 2.5 hours away, is, a quarter of that price. And it's the same scope of work, the same type of home. So I'm very lucky in that regard. But I'm right now with where the market is at, we as investors, we do well when there's hardship, right? And unemployment is low. People have cash in their pocket. Hardship is low. Motivation is low. And there's an oversaturation of people trying to invest right now. And I have seen a significant amount of people overpaying for deals. They're going to lose money. And, that's unfortunate. And I won't get caught in that cycle. So I rely on a lot of my back channels to bring me deals that are very minimal competition. So I'll do probably half of what I did last year, maybe make a little bit less, but that has also given me permission and the ability to go focus on some other things. And I've been taking down some commercial assets and trying to reposition some of my portfolio of stuff that I think is at a peak, kind of price and value, and 1031 exchange that into other assets that are in better areas, different asset classes, equal or greater cash flow. So I'm kind of using this time right now as things on the flip side and the wholesale side. I'll do some more wholesales on top of those 12 flips. But right now that is kind of the focus that I'm having is I don't know what's going on in the market. I don't know how much more runway we have with it. I think we still have some, but I'm kind of, I'm taking it easy right now. I'm not trying to be too aggressive. And it's like when you're up 3-1 in a hockey game, you're not going to go attack the net. You're going to pass the puck around. You're going to play smart. You're going to be strategic. And I'm going to wait for the next run to kind of kick off.
Now you're obviously involved in all of this, but you talk about the me, we, they, or I do, we do, they do. You said, you are doing this stuff. So I just, for clarity's sake, like what does your team look like that's running this, that's doing, so you say, hey, I want to reposition some of these assets, sell them because they're at the peak, 1031 them into a different asset class or a different area. What is that? What does your team look like? Like who is doing this with you, just to get very granular on this?
Yeah. So I literally have one admin in the office. I've got essentially 2 admins. I have my real estate attorney. I have, and I separate out the construction team, which really they do a lot of the heavy lifting. So like the construction company that I own with my partner in that business, we have 18 full-time employees. We have over 100 subs. So literally from the day I close a property to the day that it's staged, I walk a property once or twice. if I want to. So for me, that whole process really, you know, we got the acquisitions, and then we have the construction team. I have, you know, a handful of realtors that work for me. So like actual salaried employees on the investment side of the business, 3.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an important distinction. Something I'm learning really is like, you know, you think of, oh, these people have, you know, these huge teams, and how do I hire people making 50,000 a year and 10 or 20 of them or whatever. And what I learned is this: it's mostly you're using, you know, outsourced type of labor, you know, attorneys, realtors, all of that good stuff. And you have your kind of core, your inner circle that runs a lot of the day to day.
And so like, there's a good rule of thumb. Like I was literally running my flip business by myself, doing 10 to 15 flips, making about 300,000 a year with no employees whatsoever. Right. So you can be a one-person shop. And then I had my team at the largest was 15 people. So this is kind of my sweet spot where like I see a lot of people that are doing 100 plus deals a year, and it's sexy, and the ego is like, oh, I want to be doing 100 deals like they are, and I want to have these calling centers, and I want to have all this stuff going on. But when I go back to what is my vision is not that. That's just not my vision. My vision is to have a free, flexible lifestyle where I don't have to manage a ton of headaches and a ton of personalities and a ton of people, at least on that flipping side of things. I have other bigger goals and visions for some of my other businesses that we're growing and scaling our teams. But when it comes to my flipping business, that's a grind. I mean, you know, you're only as good as your last flip, right? This is not something that is recurring revenue. So it's consistent machines that require gasoline and require management and require, you know, revenue coming in on, because if you have a big team and you don't have consistent deal flow or revenue coming in, that overhead will burn and eat you up very, very quickly. And so that's where you got to kind of find that sweet spot and then figure out, when is it time to scale, or do you want to scale based on what you're really looking to accomplish out of all of that?
Makes sense. All right. We've got about a little over 10 minutes maybe with you. So I want to package a question here. So it'll be a little beefy, but I know you can handle it.
And I can hang till about 5 minutes till.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, I want to respect your time as well. So, you know, I think there's a delta between guys like you who are really killing it in the investment space around capital, right? You would say, man, there's so much money out there right now. It's ridiculous, right? There's a lot of capital to deploy right now. I think the starting investor, the beginning investor would say, you know, hey, I don't know how to raise money. Where do I find money? How do I raise money? So I guess the question is, can you talk about your efforts around capital raising? And I know it's not as simple as like, oh, you just go to this person, that person, but give us a little bit of background on the or some lessons, I guess, on how people can raise capital effectively. And how that is transitioning now into the commercial space. Like, what are the skills the same? Is there a difference? What does this look like? And you can even loop in, if you are, whatever level of syndication you're getting into in that respect.
Absolutely. So I'll go back to my first deal, and then I'll talk about where I'm at right now. So my first deal, I was living at home I was 20 years old. I had about $5,000 or $6,000 in credit card debt. I had something like that. So I didn't have a pot to piss in. And when I first worrying about the money and focus on finding the deal. And I was like, yeah, but I need this and I need that. And I just kept coming up with all these limiting beliefs that, like, if I don't have this, then I can't go and do that. And he just kept, go and find the deal, go and find the deal. If it's really a deal, the money will find the deal. And I found that deal, and I funded that deal 100% using other people's money. And that's literally how I have funded every single one of my flips, is is either hard or private money first and a private money second. Private money second, first, plus a whole cost everybody makes out. And if it's really a deal, everybody's going to get paid out and taken care of. And I'm going to make my profits on top without having to cut anybody in on that deal. So that's how, over the years, like, I found one of my private lenders who's $1 million with me. I found them through a direct mailer. They said that they wouldn't sell me their property, but they were going to sell one of their rentals, and they would invest $100,000 with me long story short, over 3-4 years doing right by them, mastering my craft, building rapport, and just strengthening the relationship, they sold 20 of their rental properties through my real estate team, and they placed every single penny of those real estate properties with me on the deal. So when I say it's relationships, as cliched as that sounds, whether that's going to REI meetups, whether that is, you know, cutting people in on the deal on the front end and just saying, hey, look, I'm new to this game, but if I come across a great deal, would you be open to partnering on it with me, and I'll cut you in on it, right? Then you get to learn. I started just being hungry, being humble, being willing to do whatever it takes. And I always tell people, like, in the beginning, when you're first getting started, it's better 100% right? But you're getting experiences, you're building a database, and your money, and that is so be starting out, because everybody should be playing the long game. We're looking at the lifetime value of these relationships. It's have somebody edit, or and you could have made, you know, 10,000 on one deal, but then you do 50 deals with these people over the next 5 or 10 years, and they have $3.5 million with you, and you just then trying to make 50, or trying to make too much on the front end, and then you don't do business with them again. People always are thinking too short-sighted. So I would just say, be open to that. Use that kind of strategy and framework for how you build your relationships, and just know it takes time, right? I'm sure if you're in real estate, you've heard of the term farming, right? Farming a neighborhood. I farm my relationships with my private lenders, where whether it's now, it's in a week, it's in a month, it's next quarter, it's next year, it's 5 years from now, I know that my farm that I'm cultivating of private money, I'm going to be doing this for the next 30, 40 years, right? You never stop lead generating. So I'm constantly rototilling new dirt with new investors. I'm planting new seeds. I'm watering those seeds consistently. I'm adding value. I'm building rapport. I'm showing up professional. I'm always operating with integrity and ethics. And I know that by doing that, I turn around and I'm like, oh shit, I got a pretty big farm full of people, crops, right, that have fruit, cash that they want to deploy, that I can pick at if and when the right deal comes along that fits into their box, right? So I have people that like flip, now are invested in multifamily, people that are invested in commercial, but over time, now when I put deals in front of people, they don't go, hey, tell me about the deal, hey, da-da-da-da. They go, we wire the money to, right? And obviously that's taken some time, but it's come through playing the long game, building relationships, and constantly talking about it, just building connections over and over, asking people who they know. Because I guarantee you know somebody with money, or you know somebody who knows somebody with money. And this is a perfect community, right? Jamie's got an amazing community of people that are pretty well connected, right? And I guarantee you probably know some people that are pretty well connected. But if you're in REI networks, it is a great investment on you accordingly, and pitch them the deal properly and put it together where it's kind of juicy and tasty enough, and it's passive, and they trust in the team and the person executing on whatever's going to get them that return, and they feel safe. It's a great way for everybody to win. And then my goal is always to turn one opportunity and parlay it into two, take two, parlay it into three, right? So just playing that long-term game and really laying that foundation, having a long-term mindset.
Beautiful. So, all right, now you're diving into the commercial space, right? So are you beginning to syndicate, or are you going straight with, you know, JV or just private capital to fund deals?
All private capital. I mean, so like my multifamily and money, more of the BRRRR strategy, where, you know, I will be doing some repositioning, refinancing, getting everybody's cash back out. But I try and avoid JVs unless I have to do it. And you're starting a couple extra zeros on some of these deals, you're going to have to syndicate, right? And it's a great way to make it a win-win for continue, you know, building up that database of opportunity because, you know, I started and doing some of those things. So depending on what asset class you're investing in, what you're focusing on, you're going to have to syndicate. Team is something that I believe is, you know, imperative. Achieve goals. And I see Phil said, why avoid JVs? I mean, why JV if you don't have to JV, right? Why cut somebody in if you don't have to do it? So I've been at a place where I don't have to do that. I mean, why not own 100% of something? Why would I give away equity ownership in something that I don't have to give equity ownership away in, and still meet other investors' goals, right? They're going to get their percentage interest rate return plus a point or two, and I'm not giving up any equity in a big piece of wealth that is going to generate me something from a cash flow perspective and a net worth perspective, a significant for my family over the next 20, 30, 40, 50, you know, a lot of these I want to pass on to my children, my grandkids, right? So I don't see why I would cut somebody in on something if I don't have.
Nope, that makes. Oh, I think I got froze up here, Matt. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yep, sorry about that. I got a little, I'm seeing people mentioning a glitch in here. I don't know whose end that's on, but I'm going to blame you because I can. I'm kidding. I don't know if it's my internet or what, but let's, can you still hear me okay or no?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about, we got a few minutes left. Let's talk about some of the stuff that you're working on. So you have the Rich Life Academy, and I'll put it up here. I'm a Rich Life Planner guy. You know, I love and endorse the stuff that Matt does. He's, again, he's a great guy to follow. So talk to me about what you're trying to do there. I think you alluded to it a little earlier, but what are you doing with the Rich Life? Why do you have a planner? What is your, like, give me kind of the gist of that stuff.
All right. Can you guys hear me okay?
I can now.
Okay. I just switched over on Wi-Fi network, so let me know if you can hear me all right.
Yep, I can hear you great.
All right, cool. So in regards to the planner, like I said, was never the smartest, fastest, or strongest, but I'm really good at modeling after people who have results that I admire or want to achieve or want to implement into my own life. And I went to a mastermind group, and I was about 25 years old, and it was a millionaire mastermind group, and it was kind of the first time that I was around a bunch of multi-millionaires and people with high net worth. But what I realized was they were also, many of them were living like millionaires in all pillars of their life. And then there were many people who were financially really well off and really abundant, but they sucked as husbands. They sucked as fathers. They were horrible leaders. They didn't care about anybody else but themselves. And I just didn't align with them from a core values perspective. But there were some people that I really admired how they lived their life and how they lived like a millionaire in what I believe to be many of the core pillars of a balanced and happy and rich and fulfilling life. And what I saw was from a few of them that they all had like planners and kind of tracking and journal keeping. And, you know, they were being very intentional of having awareness around the areas that they said were very, very important to them. And I realized that I didn't have that. So I had kind of looked at a handful of different people. I started kind of going on this binge of researching all different kinds of planners and tools and resources that I could use. And I started all in an Excel spreadsheet. And I was literally for a year straight printing out the Excel spreadsheet every single day in one of those, blank planners and gluing it in every day. And I still have my first planner. It's kind of cool. It's like this thick with 10 pounds of hot glue in it. And I, over the years, started kind of optimizing it and getting it a little bit better and better. And I would carry this thing around with me everywhere. I became obsessed with it. And more people started looking at it and were like, dude, this is awesome. Like, this is great. Like, you need to print one of these. And as I started hearing that more and more, that's why I created the Rich Life Planner, was to really have a framework and a tool that allowed me and other people who wanted that to create some real systems and processes around building the right habits, the right disciplines, the right mindset, and then obviously planning those things accordingly into your days, your weeks, your months, your years, that were stepping stones when accomplished to getting to that 1 year vision or the 2 or the 3 or the 5 year vision. So that's why I created the Rich Life Planner. And that's really why we've created the Rich Life Academy and ecosystem is for people who want to build out their rich life, whatever that looks like. We believe those RICH pillars of relationships, investments, community and contribution, and health, mental, physical, and spiritual are very, very important pieces to give equal attention to and to track and be intentional about on a daily and a weekly and a monthly and a yearly basis. And we want to surround ourselves with other people that are living like that in their own life, so we can all learn, grow, and rise together, and go and have that ripple effect in our own families, in our own communities, in our own businesses. And it's just become an ultimate passion of mine to, you know, if you tweak one person's mindset, whether it's a conversation, a tool, a resource, an experience, a relationship that sets them on a new path or new trajectory to getting to somewhere that they haven't been before, that's what gets me fired up every day.
I love it. And I'll tell you, it's not for looks. I use this thing every day, every week, every Sunday. I sit down, map out my week right out of the computer. It's redundant for me, but it helps me kind of, jot it down and know what's going on. The book, the guide is, just the way it's designed, it lays flat. There's ribbons to kind of separate out, where I am, what week I have marked off every week. So I can just flip right to it.
Love it.
Very simple to use. So it's a great product, not in the academy, but I know some people that are, and it is, from everything I hear, it's tremendous. So I love what you're doing. I really do. I've said to people before, most of the guests that I bring on, I have some connection with, whether it's their product, their offering, their services, or I've met them and I have a really good sense for who they are. In your case, it's a couple of them. I met you in Montreal, and you're the real deal.
Thanks, buddy.
And this planner has been, as life-changing as a planners can be. And that's no BS. It's very well laid out and helps me who's nuts structure all this craziness in my brain, so.
The 2020 version is going to be even better based on all the feedback that we've gotten. Cause this was like our first year where we opened it up. We sold out 2,000 planners in like 2 weeks. And now we're really going to, based on the feedback and people like you and all the amazing, community members that have really used it and given us kind of the 2.0 input. We're really excited to launch what we have coming up this year with the new product.
As am I. I could send you the check now. It's a done deal. It's been great. So, Maddie, where can people learn more about you, about what your products, your offerings, your services, whatever it may be? Where can they get in touch with you or learn about you?
Yeah, all my social media handles are official Matty A. Most of my stuff, I would say my daily stuff is on Instagram and just the stories, kind of the day-to-day stuff that I'm doing. In regards to the Rich Life, you can go to therichlifeacademy.com, which is where we have our actual academy, where we're rolling out our accountability groups for, 5 people per niche in whatever their experience level is and whatever their goals specific are. So pairing people that are, with Airbnbs, pairing people that are flipping, pairing people that are wholesaling, pairing people that are into multifamily, whatever it may be. We have our Rich Life Academy that is starting to grow and expand, and we're excited about that. So people can check out more there, or they can just go to mattaitchison.com, which is where I have a lot of free content, downloads and resources and things like that, or listen to interviews like this at millionairemindcast.com, which is the podcast that I have where I interview people that I think are living like millionaires in all areas of their life.
It's an incredible podcast. So, all right. I see in here a couple people saying they didn't realize RICH was an acronym. I'll admit I didn't either. So you just dropped some new information on us. Maybe you just made it up. I don't know. You might get that.
That's it.
I'm going to bring Phil in here real quick to say hi, and then we're gonna say goodbye to Matty A. Phil's going to transition us out. Phil, get on there, buddy. Get your video going and your audio. But Matty A, really, honestly, thank you so much for being on here today. I really appreciate it. I know you got a lot of stuff going on. Yeah. So no, thanks again. And we hope to see you soon.
Absolutely. Thank you, man.
Phil, say hi to Matty A.
How you doing, brother?
What's up, Phil?
Dude, awesome as always.
Back at you, buddy.
Taking some notes. Glad all is well, and hope to see you soon, brother.
Yes, sir, man. Enjoyed our car ride in Montreal, so hopefully we'll catch up soon, buddy.
Epic.
All right, Matty. Thank you.
All right, guys. Take care.
We'll see you.
Hey, thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
All right, Mr. Capron.
What is up?
It's a fresh haircut.
Your boy Ben he likes the new do. So is that two of you?
Yeah, I think it looks good. I think you wear it well. So
man.
I like the cat too.
It's my commitment cat. It says success is largely a matter of hanging on after others have let go.
Beautiful.
And it is so true.
That's true. Yeah. Look, I'm hanging on back there. What'd you think? What'd you think of Matty A?
Dude, I love Matty A. I mean, what kind of question is that?
Key takeaways, I guess, is the question. Anything that you got new? I know we've talked to him and heard from him a lot, but.
So there was a lot of his backstory that I wasn't aware of. And that was, pretty sobering stuff. He went through a lot and fortunately, attached a good meaning to the best possible meaning to, the circumstances that he went through. Instead of being a victim of them, he, decided to take a different path, and, he's helping a ton of people and killing it. And like you said, family man, father, husband, and good friend, great guy. So.
Yeah, it's funny. Until I did, what I feel is a lot of work on myself in the last year, 2 years or whatever, just on my own development. Yeah, I don't know if I could have believed that a guy could go from this way to that way and truly be this guy. Like, if triggered, is he going to be this guy again, right? But I've learned that that's not the case. And if you get around a guy like Matty A, if you talk to him, if you interact with him or whatever, I think you learn pretty quickly that he is. He's the real deal.
That's the best way to describe it.
Yeah. What you just saw is what you get, whether you're, in person with him, he's on a podcast or whatever the case may be.
The biggest thing that, I wrote down as I was sitting here is make sure that your audio matches your video, or your video matches your audio rather. So everyone likes to talk a big game, and, what actions are you taking deliberately every day to go where you want to go? And then the reality is most people have no freaking clue where they want to go. You ask somebody what they want and they can't answer you.
Right.
And that's why I just love being around you and guys like Matty and a lot of people that are here on the call is, we might not always get it right, but at least we're trying, we're making those steps forward. And it's crazy when you start writing stuff down, when you start being deliberate, you take that kind of compound effect type action, stuff starts happening. I mean, it's radical to look back, a couple of years in my life, and the key to that is surrounding yourself with the right people, challenging yourself every day. And then again, just having some kind of a roadmap of where you're going. Even if it's not, all the waypoints or stops aren't plotted out, you have to have some end in mind, or some, goal that's a leapfrog to the next goal.
No doubt.
Repeating patterns that have become part of your life more by default than design.
Yeah, 1000%. No, it's a great point. And whenever he speaks, it just gets the wheels turning, and I don't know. I thought that was very fascinating. Hope everybody enjoyed it. Don't go anywhere. I see we're still holding attendance pretty well here. Phil's going to come on here with Darin. Before we get there, we got about a minute. I just wanted to kind of throw out a couple of things. I'm gonna do some plugs for my little multifamily and more community. I don't know if this is the right way to do it, but this is what I'm gonna do.
Do it, because I mean, dude, you've created a monster. So maybe you plug in a minute, but I'm so impressed with the engagement and just how your message is spreading around the country. I'm speaking at the Baltimore one next Thursday.
Oh yeah,
we're doing like a web broadcast from there with Ian and some other folks. And I mean, I think they had like 40 people, last time I zoomed in. Todd's saying Baltimore's on fire. Yeah, man. And that's just one. That's just one, a half a dozen. And there's, probably check with you in a month and there's gonna be 10 more, who knows? But yeah,
that's the hope. It's cool, man. When I started this, I think it was like, I was frustrated by not finding brokers that would deal with me. And, I was like, all right. And I went to other RIAs and they were just this giant pitch for their own products. And as I say that, I'm not going to pitch products, but just, let people know what's going on with my group here. But literally like hour and a half of a pitch. And it was just frustrating. So I started this multifamily group, no deals to my name at that point. So Matty talked about fake it till you make it. That was me standing in front of people saying, hey, come to my multifamily meetup. But my learning on this was I really enjoy it. I enjoy the networking stuff. I enjoy, creating content. The Facebook Lives, I've actually become a little bit maybe vain with them. I don't know, but I like them. I like getting on and interacting with people. I like getting stuff. I like putting these things together. And I guess the initial intent was, man, maybe I can cultivate some deals or whatever. But it turned to more like, hey, how can I add more value? And that's where I am. I just want like Matty A. Next month, I'll talk about this. Next month, we got Rock Thomas, who's, Yeah, he'll spit some fire next month. He's crazy. I mean, he's going to be amazing. Investor. I'll let him go. I'll ask one question and then he'll just go.
Your job is easy next month.
Right. So, but I love doing this and I want to do this more frequently. I want to bring more content. So I see Darin's on there. I'll bring him on here in just a sec. But just so everybody knows what's happening. So multifamily mortgage, as Phil said, 7 markets: Michigan, Baltimore Metro, South Florida, Tampa, Cleveland, Chattanooga, Minnesota, as Eric says down here, Eric Guido. Minneapolis is about to blow up. Cleveland and Baltimore are in the 100+ club. Actually, Baltimore's about to hit 200. South Florida is about to hit 100, and Michigan's almost about 550 or so. So all the groups are growing, and it's going great. I have an upcoming interview with Joe Fairless. People know him from the Best Ever podcast. He can't do this, scheduling issue, so I'm going to just record about a 30-minute interview with him, and I'll post it for everybody to see. Any questions, message me, post it in the group, whatever that you may have for him, and I'll make sure he gets them. So that's coming up. Then the virtual meetup this time next month. Rock Thomas, if you don't know who he is, look up his Goalcast video. The guy is unbelievable. He's our mentor. A lot of people in this group know who he is. And in July, this guy, man, I didn't know who he was until Grant Warrington turned him on to me. But Albert Bariz, owner of McKinley, president, CEO, owner of McKinley Inc. This dude controls over $4.6 billion in assets. Walmart's, multifamily, you name it. And he doesn't syndicate. He doesn't syndicate. I don't know how, but we're gonna find out in July when he comes on the virtual meetup. So those are the next couple of guests. So everybody's aware as well. Getting to live events, Phil, you've been to about 75 to 80 in the past year, I think. Getting to live events is big. Jake and Gino, dear to my heart. If those of you who have followed me at all, I love Gino. He was on last month. They have Multifamily Mastery, October 19-20 in Orlando. If you plan on going, go onto their site, type in multifamily and more in the coupon code, you'll get 10% off. And if we get enough people down there, I'd like to arrange like a national multifamily and more like meetup, at least for an hour or two while we're all there together. So anyone who wants to go, please join me, join us. It'll be fantastic. And then lastly, and this is myself, this is for me. Tuesday, Jake and Gino are popping a podcast called Movers and Shakers out, brand new podcast. Myself and my partner Benoit were the first guests. So we'll be out on Tuesday as the first guest of that podcast. And then the reciprocation with Joe Fairless, I'll be on the Best Ever podcast, recording next week, and I'll let people know when that comes out. So stay tuned. Hopefully this is exciting for you to be part of a community, like it is exciting for me to be kind of in front of this community and trying to develop and cultivate it. Thank you so much to everybody who's out there really participating and being such incredible promoters of this group. So did I do all right?
Because you're a great host.
Well, thank you.
I appreciate you. So.
Thank you. I'm promoting Darin now to panelist. There he is.
Got a promotion. Sweet.
He's got a promotion. So once he unmutes and turns his video on, I don't think I can do that for him. That would be embarrassing. We'll get, hey, Darin, can you hear us okay?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Perfect.
Okay, great.
Phil, you good?
I'm great.
All right. Well, I'm going to step out of the way. There's no way for me to remove myself. So you're going to see me there, like my picture. But guys, for those who don't know, Phil, he'll introduce himself. Phil is a badass multifamily investor, 202 units currently. He was just on Michael Blanc's podcast but a webinar with Michael Blanc last night, which was great. And Darin is a very accomplished attorney who agreed graciously to come on and talk to us about creating a syndication and all the ins and outs of that Phil will kind of guide through the conversation. So as was the case before, pop your questions up in the message section. And I would ask that you guys type or select all panelists and attendees, because I did see a bunch coming through to just me and Maddie in that interview. And people were even calling you out, Phil, but it was to me. I think it wasn't all panelists and attendees, so that you couldn't see it, So please select all panelists and attendees if you're posting so everybody can see it, unless you really just want to go to the panelists themselves, which are these two guys. So I'll step out of the way.
Cool.
We good?
Thanks again, brother.
Thank you, everybody. I'll see you soon. I'll come back at the end.
Okay. Sounds good.
Thanks, Jamie.
Thank you.
Darin, do you have a webcam or no?
My webcam is not working. I apologize.
Okay, yeah, no worries. You mean these poor people are stuck looking at me? It's not
Yeah,
good.
well,
It's
you
not a
and the
good
cat
start.
behind you. So yeah.
The cat. Yeah, we've got my commitment cat. We've got that handsome, strapping individual, Jamie Gruber. His picture's
Yeah,
so cool.
it's a handsome shot right there.
I tell you what I'll do is I'll pull up your slides. I'll screen share and pull up your slides,
Okay.
and then we can at least look at those. Sound good?
Okay. Yep.
Or I guess before we do that, um, I very very quickly, Phil Capron. I live in Virginia Beach, and I've had a experience across a pretty wide range of the real estate spectrum over the last decade or so. Um, buy and hold properties, flipped about 3 dozen houses, was working on a small subdivision, owner financing, wholesaling, sold maybe 60 houses as a real estate agent. And fortunately, finally, I mean, it's in all the podcasts, it's in all the books, you can flip, you can wholesale your way to a lot of, I guess a lot of riches is a good way to put it, but it's not going to make you wealthy. You're killing, or you're eating what you kill. And with multifamily, or I guess you could do it with single family buy and hold, but multifamily is a much more powerful vehicle. You're creating a farm, and those crops are showing up every year with a lot less management than going out on a grueling hunt every day. So that's why I love multifamily. Really stoked to have Darin here to walk us through kind of the nuts and bolts of what it takes for one of us to go out and to purchase a large apartment building. We'll touch on joint ventures and, doing stuff as closely held business entities. But what we really want to talk about here is syndication. And that is, in layman's terms, raising money from passive investors to put into a multifamily building, a commercial property of some sort. So that's a little bit about me. Darin, would you like to give the folks a quick intro about you and your firm? I'll pull up the slides.
Yeah, you bet. I appreciate the opportunity to join your webinar. I've been in a private securities practice for the past 20 years, and majority of our clients are real estate syndicators. I mean, really ranging, as we were talking about earlier, ranging from, just, one or two single, multifamily units. We've got clients that are doing single family homes, all the way up to, really large, real estate investment trusts that are raising $30 to $50 million a pop, that are doing hotels and what have you. And, what a lot of people don't realize is that, all the securities laws apply whenever you're doing a syndication, whether you have just a handful of investors or, several hundred. So it just depends on obviously how, what your ambitions are. And, we've got clients that, again, over the past 20 years that have ranged all the way, just, across the board. And so, we've seen the good times and bad times. Obviously clients have gone through, the real estate, financial crisis of 2008 and, seeing the good, the bad, the ugly on those fronts. And so, the whole idea is to make sure you can weather the storm, whether it's, economic or regulatory or what have you. So anyway, so that's kind of our focus is our niche practices in that space.
Awesome. Cool. Let me pop up your slides here. And can you see that? Can everyone see that? Hopefully.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. So Mangum and Associates, you've got 5 offices.
We just recently opened an office in Puerto Rico late last year, and so for tax reasons, and that's but we've been we have offices nationwide.
Cool. Awesome. So guys, if you want to take a quick screenshot of this, or maybe we come back to it, telephone number, mangumlaw.net to get a hold of Darin or one of the other partners. If you have questions about how to structure something for one of your deals in the future. And then also his email and seller on there as well.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk to anybody about, we routinely give free initial consultations, because sometimes, just through conversation, maybe it's not the right timing, or, maybe the PPM structure, different offering structures, are tailored toward different deals. And so, yeah, but happy to take any calls or, emails or what have you. So, yeah.
Cool. So Matt had a question, and we can hop on this before going in, because I know that you've got a crystal ball, and so do I. What are your predictions for the 2020 market?
Are you asking me that question? Yeah.
Sure. I mean, before we dive in, it's an interesting question, and obviously anything that we say is just an opinion. So,
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I think it's I tend to be an optimist, but at the same time, I've seen how ugly it can get, even when you have all your ducks in a row. Gold-plated PPM, all the economic factors are pointing up and up, and then you might get a couple bad apple investors in your deal, or let's say you get an SEC inquiry for some reason out of the blue. This could definitely cramp your style, and if you're not prepared, it could definitely throw cold water on what otherwise would be a great project. And so, obviously, like I mentioned, the financial crisis. I mean, I don't think anybody really saw how bad that would get. I mean, but what's the forecast? Well, hope for the best, but be prepared for the worst is what I would say.
That is a great piece of wisdom there. Take a look at the historicals and really stress test your deals that you're getting into, vet your partners, and make sure that you've got a few potential exits. Because I'm Darin's an attorney. He's probably not wanting to put too much out there in the way of predictions or anything like that, just because nobody knows what's going to happen. But that's really solid advice as far as things to look out for. I'll make a prediction, and who knows if I'm right or if I'm wrong. Cap rates have been compressing for so long. We've been on such a bull market, especially in the multifamily space. A lot, people have been calling for a little bit of a downturn for the past 3 years, because that would be about your historical cycle. We've passed a historical cycle and then some. But when you look at the larger macro demographic trends, there's a really strong case for continued bullishness in the multifamily space. Millennials are and Xennials are waiting longer to establish households. They're coming out of school with a lot of debt that in many cases is preventing homeownership. And it's a mentality shift. We watched our parents, those of us who are probably about 25 to 40, have seen some impact of our parents getting bushwhacked by the 2007 thing, so being a older millennial, I mean, I was right there. I would have been graduating college in 2006. My sisters were heading into college in 2007 when everything turned upside down. What was different about that recession was it was real estate driven due to very reckless and unsavory lending practices. So allegedly we learned our lesson, but history tends to repeat itself. So we want to take a look at that as single family lenders are getting into limited doc loans and are really kind of starting to push the envelope again. But the reality of the 2008 and few years following recession is the single family residential market saw a foreclosure rate somewhere around 4%, and in multifamily it was about a tenth of that, like 0.4%. So every 4 out of 100 houses were going under, and then because of how residential real estate is valued, it dragged the rest of the market along with it. People were using their houses as piggy banks because everything was going up and up and up. The lenders were happy to give it to them. So the foreclosures, the short sales, people needing to sell when they had a life event, you know, loss of a job, change of a job, you know, those folks that in many cases did it right were, you know, fell victim to those who really pushed the envelope. And again, these kind of really reckless lending practices. However, in multifamily, particularly in the sort of workforce housing area, the B's and the C's, you know, blue collar type stuff, very low delinquency rate. So I am not as scared as a lot of other people are. And another reason, you know, I'll say that is because of how I'm currently structuring debt. I'm very mindful if I'm getting something that's, you know, short-term bridge type loan that's due in the next, you know, 5 or 7 years, that I want to make sure that I'm creating a ridiculous amount of equity so that no matter what happens, I'm going to be able to either raise more money or some kind of way refinance that debt. People in the multifamily space who could potentially get in trouble, in my opinion, are some of the larger syndication outfits that, you know, they're incentivized by the fees that they're getting when they put a deal together. It's known as a sponsorship or acquisition fee, you know, for putting everything together. And then the lion's share of their investor returns that they're pro formaing or projecting or putting on a PPM that Darin will talk about is based on the market appreciation that we've seen the past few years. I think to anticipate those levels of rent growth and cap rate compression is a little reckless. So that is why I personally stick to the more, you know, working class, blue collar, B and C type stuff that is value add. So even if the market does go down, we've created so much value that maybe we didn't hit our returns, but we're not going to be at risk of losing buildings or anything like that. Again, prediction land here. I do believe we're going to have some kind of upset as we roll into the election, no matter what happens with it. You know, but on the other side of that is the tax laws that have been implemented the last couple of years. The tax law of 2017 has been tremendously advantageous for commercial real estate investment. So, you know, I know that I gave you some conflicting stuff there, but that is the market as I see it. And I'm not afraid to kind of put that stuff out. Maybe I'm absolutely right. Maybe I'm 100% wrong, but I've got just as good of a chance of being right as anyone else because nobody's got a crystal ball. So anyway, Darin, you wanna take over here? Or let me make sure there's no other questions real quick. I can't watch the chat while I'm screen sharing.
I would certainly agree with that. Just briefly, I mean, obviously not. Yeah, we can't make a perfect prediction, but certainly, yeah, to the extent you are, I mean, yeah, the ones that get, you know, what is it? Warren Buffett says that, you know, you can tell who's skinny dipping when the tide goes out. You know, that's what happens when, you know, you deals that are highly leveraged and, you know, they don't have any, you know, downside protection. I mean, everybody had equity interests in real estate that didn't have any senior positions to wipe them out. They were fine. They just weathered the storm. Whereas, you know, highly leveraged deals was just the first to go down. So yeah, stuff to keep in mind when you're structuring your deals, you know.
Right. And Sal had a great point that Fed is holding tight. And again, we can't you know, make a perfect prediction about what's going on there. But I just locked in, you know, a Freddie Mac loan at 4.96%, fixed for 10 years and then floating for the next 10. You know, 3 years interest only, non-recourse. I mean, I'm trying to lock as many of those types of deals in right now, so long as there's a solid value add component as I can, because historically we're not going to do any better than that, like ever. So, you know, if the market remains flat, just the principal pay down enables us to, you know, on a 10-year hold, we're going to be okay. I mean, if that was literally the only thing and maybe a 10% cash on cash from the cash flow, you know, I love that deal, but you know what I mean? We're not at risk. And, you know, I would say probably the most important thing in this business is risk mitigation. When you're talking about deals of this size and magnitude, you know, Maddie was talking about flipping, and he does some huge flips, you know, Northern California market, really big flips. But with, you know, big apartment or commercial buildings, and we could be talking about, you know, 7-8 figure deals, and, you know, the magnitude of error is just, it's compounded. And if you screw one of those up, you're out, and you're probably out for life, or, you know, for at least a really significant amount of time. So, cool. All right, Darin, you want to get rolling into the wonderful world of syndication and all this alphabet soup stuff?
Yeah.
Cool.
Glad to dive in there. And yeah, these slides that I shared with you, you know, I tried just to hit the kind of the highlights. I'd probably like to take, you know, just a minute with this slide that you've got up, and then more time with the other slide, because that's really where the, you know, I mean, these are the, what I say, you know, these are sort of the handicapped provisions that people can still use, but they have, because of the limitations they have associated with them, they're not ideal in most circumstances. And, you know, we can hit those highlights and then move on to the next one, because that's where the most of your activity is being focused on. But, you know, basically these other, the reason why these other exemptions or rules by which you can syndicate are not widely used, mainly it's they're either capped in terms of dollar amounts, like you can only raise a certain amount, or it's got what we call, you know, dual regulation when it comes to, I mean, we have a federal system where you have SEC, which is the federal regulator, and then you've got each of the individual states that has their own state securities regulator. And so, you know, where you really want to be is, and the way we structure the vast majority of our real estate syndications is that we structure them as what we call federally covered, which means they're good to go in all 50 states and U.S. territories, and even internationally as well under what we call Regulation S. But you know, primarily we're concerned with, you know, making sure that they're federally covered that way, because, you know, nowadays you don't know necessarily where your investors are going to come from. I mean, yeah, you may have a number of them locally, but, you know, with the advent of the internet and, you know, the ability to, you know, just the way we're interconnected nationwide, I mean, you may have investors coast to coast potentially, right? And so you definitely don't want to get hung up in, you know, state regulations that are super antiquated. And so that's, you know, when we talk about, say, Rule 504, you know, again, the limitation there is, you know, I get calls all the time, say, hey man, I've been looking at this federal rule, and hey, why can't we can raise up to $5 million under Rule 504. I'm like, well, hey, that would be great if we didn't have these things called states out there that, you know, have their own, you know, we have 50 little kingdoms that have their own hand in the pot that don't recognize 504 in that state. So, you know, that's sort of a big limitation, you know, because you have to comply not only with federal rules, but also state rules, right? So that's why 504 is still, I mean, I think if they made Rule 504 eventually a federally covered exemption, then yeah, that would be a big plus. But but as it stands right now, that's not the case. Same with, I mean, you hear a lot of stuff out there talking about regulation crowdfunding, or CF for short, you know, and that's great. You know, certainly it has its place, but again, it's capped at $1 million. You can't go market directly to investors. You have to go through a broker dealer. You have to go through a portal. It has, you know, certain limitations that, again, I'm not knocking it, but again, for it to be a true tool, I mean, you want it to have the most flexibility as possible. And so again, $1 million doesn't really get you that far in a lot of real estate deals. And again, you know, having to go through a portal instead of just being independent, I mean, that's the limitation. You know, we can talk about Regulation A+. I mean, that's certainly for those of you that are have bigger ambitions to raise a larger fund. And, you know, the next slide will talk about, there's 2 tiers of Regulation A. One is tier 1, tier 2. Again, the problem with tier 1 is that it's not federally covered. And so again, you've got to get registered not only at the federal level, which is a big hassle, but you have to get registered in every single state that you have an investor in, and that could be a nightmare, right? So these are reasons why a lot of these exemptions just, they're not widely utilized in the real estate syndication space because of these limitations. And so anyway, and that's probably putting everybody to sleep. But anyway, I just wanted to cover those.
Look, this stuff might not be the most fun to learn about, but it might be some of the most important.
Right. So you want to
the next slide.
You want to talk about, you want to talk about what you can do. Yeah.
Yeah, precisely. So
anyway.
So you want me to switch to the next one?
Yeah. So maybe, again, I'm not, again, these may fit what you're doing, but again, that's why you need to, talk to a securities attorney and figure out what are your objectives and where do you want to go? And then, we'll know how to navigate the minefield for you and make it happen. So yeah, if you want, flip to the next slide, we can cover what, yeah. So these are the, these are the key, the differences, the key factors when, these three exemptions, and you look at the top. Regulation D has two exemptions. One's called Rule 506B, as in Bravo, and one rules that's 506C as in Charlie. These are exemptions that are by and far the most widely used in the real estate syndication space, especially 506B, and 506C, ever since it came about a few years ago, is becoming widely used. And so maybe we can certainly talk about the differences, and then of course we can talk about Regulation A, Tier 2 here. But excuse me. Sorry.
So really quick, for those that are maybe a little bit newer to the multifamily and the syndication space, would there be like a minimum threshold that it would make sense to syndicate something, or is there a certain, I guess, price point or number of units that you would say, you would be better off just trying to find one private investor, or structured as like a joint venture? And can you speak just to, I guess, from a regulatory perspective, your obligations when you are accepting money from other people to keep everyone out of hot water? The last thing you want is a government agency knocking at your door saying you did something wrong.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And that's, you see a lot of people, they try to structure it. Oh, this is a joint venture, so it's not a security because it's a joint venture. And really when the regulators look at these, joint ventures, they really look at the substance behind, they don't just look at the paperwork like, oh, it's a joint venture, I'll just move on. They really look at the people involved and whether there's actual, actual control and actual involvement by the joint venture partners.
Right. So I guess, are there any metrics or wickets that somebody has to hit to be involved? Because I'm not obviously an attorney, but my understanding on it from a layman's perspective is that if somebody is directly involved in steering an investment and is not counting on you as an operator when they're giving you their money, that they're a partner and not a quote unquote passive investor. And that's what makes something a joint venture versus, somebody just gives you $100,000, a few people, and then you cut them a check every quarter. That smells like syndication. But if they're, I'm just going to throw out a couple examples and you tell me if I'm, correct or if they're reasonable. I'm trying to think of something like if they manage the bank accounts, or if they, are involved in the contracting, or if they're, on calls with the property manager and monitoring lease up reports, or, looking at invoices from contractors. I mean, is all that stuff that would quote unquote make you an active partner?
Yeah, those are all excellent examples of, active participation. I mean, yeah, if you're totally right, if they're just they're writing a check and saying, oh, call me 6 months from now, or, oh, hey, let's have a joint venture partner meeting and vote on, every 6 months, I mean, really, that's not, really an active participation joint venture partner. I mean, you want to have, full authority on really all aspects. I mean, obviously they may be not equal jointly authority, but they, can certainly have an interest in the project and, um, joint decision making, and really it comes down to not only do they have it, but is it well documented? And if it's not documented, even though you may have had active participation, you really need to document it and be able to show that if in case you ever got looked at. You've seen situations where investor they started out active participation but later dropped out, and then later um, because they had put in money into the deal, claimed securities fraud, like, hey, and so it really needs to be carefully monitored and documented.
Gotcha. Okay. So again, that's important about kind of knowing who you're getting into business with, right?
Right, exactly right. Yeah.
Cool. And having really, watertight operating agreements and, mechanisms in place, like if then, business plan and clear, division and delegation of responsibility, authority, so on and so forth.
Correct. Yep.
Cool. All right. So let's say that we are doing a project. Would you have a cutoff of something that would quote unquote be too small to worry about syndication?
I mean, I get that question all the time. What is my deal too small for a PPM? I mean, really, it's a factor of two things. Number one, it's a factor of the amount of money, right, that you're potentially exposed to. Obviously, a PPM or a private placement memorandum is designed to protect you from having just to reach into your own pocket and pay everybody back, right? Which, you see that happen when people are convicted of securities fraud. Not only do they have potential civil and criminal liability, but they also have monetary penalties that they have to disgorge all the money, and, that's a significant burden. And, that you don't want to be potentially on the hook for all that money in case something bad happened, right? So, obviously, for some people, paying back $1 million is not going to be that big a deal, and other people, paying back 100,000 is a significant amount. I've got a few videos on YouTube. I talk about this a lot. Where I've got a video out there. It's called, does Grandma need a PPM? Like if I borrowed, let's say I borrowed $100,000 from Grandma to go do a real estate deal. If I lose it, or if something bad happens, is she likely to sue me? Well, maybe not. I mean, maybe if my grandmother is well off, maybe not. And it's only one investor, and it's somebody that I really trust and who loves me, right? So my exposure isn't that great, and so maybe I can get away with that without doing a PPM. But let's say Grandma gave me $1 million, right? Again, still only one investor that I trust and we have a great relationship with, but still the amount of money was significant enough that, okay, maybe she's not going to love me as much anymore, right? And so, so obviously the amount of money is certainly a factor, when you think, okay, what if I had to reach in my own pocket and pay everybody back? Would that be difficult for me? If so, well, then maybe I want to do a PPM, regardless of the number of people that are involved. And then the other factor is, the number of people that are involved. Let's say it's $100,000, but let's say I've got 10 guys that are putting in 10,000 apiece. Well, the amounts of money aren't that great, but the number of people, the fact I might get one of these 10 guys or gals maybe become a thorn in my side, then maybe I do want to have a PPM just to cover myself. So again, it's not, there's no magic rule of thumb, but again, you just kind of have to look at again the amount of money. The larger the amount of money and the larger number of participants, obviously the more likely I'm going to want to invest in a PPM for my own protection, right? So
cool. So I have one question here, and I don't know this answer, so I'm very, very curious to hear what you have to say. Is it possible for one limited partner to be replaced by another? Being that this is a security, is that something that's going to be governed by, I guess, the PPM and operating agreement, or is that complete no-no? Or yes, it's a security, you can sell it to someone else without checking with anyone? How might that work? Say somebody basically wants out of a deal early, what it sounds like.
Right. Yeah. So, you mean the securities laws basically require an investment before it's resold to another person to what they say, come to rest with the investor. They have to hold on to that investment for at least a 6-month and at least a 12-month period of time under Rule 144. I mean, there's various exemptions that allow you to resell early. And we can, get into that, but basically there's, but yeah, if you had an investor that, let's say, their house burned down or, whatever, and they had to get out, maybe they're, they just fell on hard times and they have to get out. Certainly if you had the cash to, obviously the PPM, and the operating agreement have to permit this, and, all of the ones that we draft do, because that always tends to happen. You're always going to have one person that, for whatever reason, needs to exit early. Obviously, if you have the cash available to buy them out, you can certainly, what we call do a redemption or redeem their units or interest in your fund and let them exit. And then you obviously could resell those units to somebody else. If you're, if let's say all of your capital is tied up in some real estate deal and somebody did need to exit, certainly you could help facilitate, find another investor that's willing to pick up their interest. Sometimes they have to sell it at a discount because of, maybe their, lack of liquidity, or maybe it depends on, how urgent the investor needs to exit and whether they're willing to take a haircut to get out early, something like that. But, or, they certainly could find their own investor and, bring them to you and say, hey, I need to sell and this guy's willing to buy. Or obviously you want to know who you just don't want to take any investor that you don't know. And so you certainly could, turn them down, or you could certainly say, okay, well, looks like we're willing to accept this new investor. And so you allow the transaction to happen. So there's there's a couple different ways that you can, allow an investor to exit early.
And then basically, like you said, there'd probably be some fees associated to allow them that luxury.
Yeah.
Really.
Some administrative costs and, maybe some legal, just to make sure all the paperwork's done. But yeah, for sure.
Cool. And then Sal had a question about, I guess, minimum investments. And I think that actually segues really nicely into the investor number cap here. Is based on the size of the deal that you're doing, every sponsor is going to structure a minimum investment differently. And there's reasons why, like how many people you can get money from and what kind of people you can get money from, right?
Correct. Right. Yep. Yeah. So obviously, the amount that you're taking in, you have to consider, typically an investor, especially if they're a first-time investor, whatever the minimum amount you've set as your minimum your minimum subscription amount is what usually they'll go for. And so, you could set minimums of, $10,000 an investor, or you can set minimums of 100,000 investor. It's you are in the driver's seat when it comes to setting those minimums. Obviously, $100,000 minimum investment is going to exclude a bunch of other people, right? And so, but maybe you're, depending on how much money you're raising and the number of investors you want in, obviously plays into that decision. And obviously, if you allow too many small investors to come in and you might, for example, under the first column there, Rule 506B allows you to take up to 35 non-accredited investors. Well, you don't want to fill up your non-accrediteds with, people that are putting in $1,000 each. It's not, it's going to be not really worth the hassle. It's, last thing you want is a small investor that's put in $1,000 to blow up your cell phone every day. Hey, how's my $1,000 doing? It's like, okay, multiply that by 35. And now, it's like, okay, that was not worth it. All right. So you try to set the minimum higher to bring in a little more, higher caliber, so to speak, investor. Right.
Precisely. And just really quickly, a lot of folks, I'm sure, do know this because they're on the call, but I'm sure that there's some who do not. When we're talking about accredited versus accredited, that means that you have a net worth of over $1 million, excluding your primary residence, or a yearly income of 200 grand for the last couple of years and expected to continue, or a household income of 300 grand and expected to continue. Did I get that right?
Exactly right. Yep.
And then non-accredited, but quote unquote, air quote, sophisticated, is somebody that has some investment experience, has some, capital to deploy. And that's on you as a sponsor to kind of vet those people. Because like Darin said, you don't want someone blowing up your cell phone over $1,000 investment. You don't want somebody causing you regulatory trouble when you're doing everything correct, because you're still going to have to, it's not innocent until proven guilty. When they're coming after you, you're going to have to, I'm assuming, prove your innocence, right?
Right. Correct. Yeah. You're the burden of proof's on you.
Those problems if you can. So there's some folks that I work with, some of the big multifamily syndicators that you all will know their names. They don't take non-accredited investors for those exact reasons. And so that eliminates a lot of folks from potentially investing. And just to stay on the 506B train here, you're not allowed to advertise. So is your network that full of millionaires that you can just go and get this thing funded? If not, then you're going to be dealing with some non-accredited folks, depending on the raise. So just things to consider.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's see here. Got some other awesome questions here. Debbie wants to know, do you collect all the investment money in place into escrow prior to closing on the transaction? Is that a sponsor decision, or do you have some say in that, Darin?
Yeah, it is a sponsor decision. Yeah, you do. It really depends on what you're intending to do. If the objective of the fund or the real estate syndication is to, let's say, close on a piece of property, and that, okay, in order to close on this piece of property, including any debt that may be associated, we need, let's say, $1 million, right? Well, obviously, you're not going to want to tap that $1 million until you have it. It's like kind of like if you don't raise that $1 million, the deal is not going to close, and so you're going to refund all the investors' money back, right? So that would be
lose some money if it's right before closing and you find out you can't close. That's a really bad day.
Right, exactly right. So you don't want to spend the money and then say, oh well, we can't return it because we spent some of it, right? Now, in some investment funds where they're not, say, closing on a particular type of property, they may be investing into various projects, maybe maybe a diversified approach. Maybe they're buying a small interest in a bunch of different projects, and in those cases, certainly, it's not an all or nothing proposition where, okay, hey, if we raise $1 million or if we raise $500,000, we're going to spread it across these couple different projects and buying them, maybe a small interest or whatever it happens to be. And so it sort of depends on what your objective is with your real estate syndication, right? And that'll sort of dictate, okay, what do we even set a minimum, or what is that minimum threshold that we need to set, right?
So
Does that help?
For my stuff, if we're doing a preferred return or if it's just a straight cash flow split, I like to have all my money a month before closing, like when my earnest money is going hard. because it could be a significant amount of money. It could be $50,000 or $100,000 in earnest money. And, then you're talking about your various fees for inspections and environmentals and financing fees for the lender and all that stuff. You want to know that you have surety of closing. I would rather pay my investors, whatever the interest rate agreed on as a pref, or, some little bonus to have that money in place, with my attorney a month or at least a few weeks prior to closing. Because if somebody shakes out, then I have time. If, you know what I mean, it's 48 or 72 hours before a hard closing date, and your guy that was coming in for 250 of that million that you just mentioned backs out, you're going to be pretty hard pressed to find $250,000 in like 48 hours. So that's just what I would do there. Have a couple people asking if there is a particular metric you can point to as far as how to certify somebody as a sophisticated investor. And to my knowledge, it's a little ambiguous. It's like they should know better, or you should know, they should know. But as an attorney, what would your definition be?
Yeah, it's a great question. Usually we design the suitability questionnaire so that when they fill out the information, it's pretty self-evident, quickly whether the person is should be considered sophisticated. I mean, obviously, education plays a factor. Prior investments plays a factor. Whether they've had any kind of investment experience, and obviously their age as well, right? So, you can certainly add up all those factors and then make a judgment call. Hey, we believe you're now even if they're not sophisticated. Let's say they're a little old lady, retired school teacher, never invested anything before, but yet, okay, maybe they have a big, nest egg that they're wanting to invest. And it's not to say that you would not, the only way you could take their investment is if they were represented by a sophisticated person like a CPA, like a financial planner, or maybe their son's an attorney or something like that. Then that would be a situation where the questionnaire would also obviously give them that option. Again, most investors are making their own decisions, but you do have cases where, they're brought to the deal by an investment advisor or somebody that is sophisticated that's recommending it for them. But ideally, they, in most cases, the very fact that they're even remotely interested or in a position to even see your deal, more likely than not that they've had prior real estate investing experience, or they've been around the block. And so that's when we have a suitability questionnaire that the investor fills out, that's your sort of record that you keep to say, hey, we deem this person sophisticated because they went to Harvard and then they've been in the stock market for 30 years. Okay, we're going to count them as sophisticated, right? So, that's an example, right?
In that questionnaire, that's covering your rear end.
Exactly right. Correct.
Issue down the road, you say, hey, look, I did. What do you want me to take a blood sample? Like, what else am I supposed to do? They filled out this. I can't call them a liar. It all looks like they've been around the block. What do you?
Yeah, we had a case, a number of years ago, not too long after the 2008 financial crisis, where the investor was crying, securities fraud, and as a real estate multifamily development project that went under, and they were saying that they didn't know what they were doing, and they said that they had been lied to and all this stuff. And then what came out and it actually went to trial, and we were there helping the client defend the case. And it turns out, the suitability questionnaire came into evidence, and it became, let's go through your suitability questionnaire, Mr. Investor. And you're claiming that, you're sort of, didn't know what you were doing. Well, it says here on the questionnaire that you've invested in 30 different deals, and you've invested for years. And at that point, the investor lost all credibility and the case was dismissed.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that sort of stuff that's how it really would play out. I mean, that was kind of worst case scenario, right? You're at trial, right? And you're trying to get the case dismissed. And yeah, I mean, totally, our client, walked out. I mean, obviously they had some legal fees to defend, but they got, they win, right? And so because of, they had the right documentation, it all comes down to that.
Gotcha. So here's a question, and I see a lot of people getting this wrong all over the Facebookosphere. Can you publicly solicit, and the Facebook is public, guys, for your deal? And under a 506B, you cannot.
Correct.
You can solicit to the public. So that's an area that I mean, I see it at least once a week. Somebody, violating this on, Facebook groups and stuff like that. So I'm not sure what would be the best question for you. I'm just kind of saying that I see it.
Well, I mean, in some cases, you have to look at, if you were saying, whether it's through LinkedIn or through Facebook or any kind of social media platform, I mean, any sort of shotgun approach is, unless you're doing a solicitation to accredit investors only, like I say, under 506C, right, which is allowed.
Yeah.
And you have to make it clear, hey, this is just for accredited investors only, but I'm blasting this out there, and any of you accredited investor Facebook friends, please let me know, right? But under 506B, it's a very, it's a no-no. I mean, now you could certainly, people that you're friends with on Facebook, you could certainly take a rifle approach and directly message that one person and say, hey, we've been friends for a while, what are you up to? And, I mean, obviously that's a one-on-one type situation, but anytime you're doing a shotgun approach and blasting it out there, yeah, you better have a covering exemption, like say 506C to do that, otherwise you might have problems.
So what would you say the ratio is for folks coming to your firm as far as what they elect to set up? Because I understand each rule has its, kind of uses in place. What are most people doing? Say I'm going to go buy a 100-unit apartment building for like, I don't know, $8 million, and I need to raise $2.5 million. What would you recommend that I do?
Yeah, I think definitely, it used to not be this way, but, lately it's been about half and half 506B, half 506C. It really depends, I mean, again, we have clients that say, hey, we've got a bunch of interested investors. We just need to make sure we're doing it right. Well, okay, in that case, you already have the investors sort of lined up, might as well just do a 506B, right? 506C is more, that's geared more toward, hey, I don't know any investors out there. And nobody knows about me. Okay, well, you know what? 506C is probably the better option in that case because that enables you to kind of get the word out and try to find those investors, right? And so, yeah, it's about half and half on those two.
Got it. So we have a little, a few other things coming into the chat here. Why can't we solicit to the public? And it's the law, right? 506B, it's the law. 506C and Reg A, so long as you've got your proper documentation, you can do that. And you just described the workaround there with talking to people you have existing relationships with privately.
Correct. Yep.
So Travis had an interesting scenario here. How about if you just post what you're doing on Facebook and a friend reaches out to you later about future deals? Is that okay?
Yeah, it depends on the post. It depends on the post. If you're just, I mean, there's nothing wrong with telling people what you're doing. If you're like a real estate developer, if you're investing yourself in real estate, if the communication is if the substance of the communication is turns into an invitation, like you could talk all day long about what you do, but once you say, hey, if you'd like to, if it turns into an invitation to contact you, or hey, why don't you partner with me, call me. I mean, that becomes potentially an offer for investment, right? Or an offer for participation. And then that's where, you may cross the line. And so, obviously, you got to be careful about what, how you portray that. And, if you, hey, here's my number, call me if you're interested in what I'm doing. I mean, that could be construed by, some security regulator in Kansas might see it and send you a letter. Yep. It happens.
That stuff absolutely happens. So this is being recorded, and I'm going to put myself out there a little bit, and hopefully you don't say this runs afoul. But the last big deal I closed, the bank kind of moved the goalpost on us, and I had to come up with like 175 grand, and very, very quickly. And, Jamie and I do stuff like this a lot. I was discussing the particular deal. I said, hey, yeah, guys, the bank did this. I'm not worried about it. I'll figure it out. And then as soon as we hung up, kind of this private forum that we have, kind of like this, my phone just starts ringing, and everyone knows what I do. So I never ask, but people know that whenever I'm talking about a new deal, that there might be an opportunity, and they contact me.
Right. Yeah. And again, you're talking about a private forum, very limited group. I mean, again, you're not going on, you aren't blasting it to the masses. And so, yeah, your exposure is not very great. And, hey, and I totally get it. I mean, in some cases, your house is on fire and you got to speed down the freeway at 100 miles an hour to get to save the house. Right. You may violate several laws getting there, but hey, you saved the house. Right. And so, it's a matter of, being practical about it as well, right? And so
I don't want to violate any laws, for the record. So I'm always very careful not to say, "Hey, right. Looking for you," but it just my phone rings a lot whenever I'm talking about whatever deals I have under contract, because people know that there might be an opportunity.
Right. Exactly right.
As a partner or as a passive investor in a syndication, and so just wanted to run that by you.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Cool. We're coming up toward the top of the hour, so I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Look, I mean, guys, there's a lot to this, and I sound like a broken record here, but your team is everything. And having somebody like Darin advocating for you, or your property manager, or your insurance broker, or the commercial broker feeding you off-market deals, all critical. We can't all be amazing at every one of those things I just listed. So if you're a deal person, be a deal person. If you're a passive investor, be a passive investor. Property manager, do that. Contractor, do that. Attorney, hey, Darin, we're glad to have you. Do that. Because in the next 5 years, I couldn't, if that was my sole mission, I couldn't know as much as you know. So I'd rather partner with you. I guess what sort of advice do you have for the folks here that are looking to do their first or next syndication? Like, what is the sort of the life cycle of a deal look like? When should we be engaging you? You mentioned very generously that you're willing to do a consult with anyone that's on this call. They reach out to you. So say next week I contract that 100 unit for $8 million. What do I do? Help.
Yeah, I'd say anytime you're within, say, 30 days of needing to pool money together from other people, to do a deal, whether it's to get it under contract or whether it's to close, or anytime you're within that 30-day window, you definitely need to, I would suggest you talk to a securities attorney and say, hey, what can we do to structure this? What can we do? There's really no excuse. There's really not an excuse not to use a PPM, because, we've, having done this for 20 years and, dozens and dozens of real estate syndications, we've kind of, got it down to a science where we know exactly what you need to make sure you're 100% clean. And that way you don't have to worry about it. Like, oh crap, I wonder, what happens if I got a regulator call, or what if an investor goes sideways? I mean, you just don't have to worry about it, because we're, like you said, we're on your team. We're going to handle that and make sure that's done correctly. And there's really not an excuse not to have a PPM. I mean, it's just like insurance, it's like, oh, if you don't have insurance on your car, you're driving around all worried and crap. What if I get in an accident? No, you get insurance, right? So you're covered. And that way, same thing with a PPM. I mean, you're using other people's money, regardless on how you're structuring it. More than likely, as securities laws are applying, so might as well get a PPM in place to protect you and make sure that, all of your hard work that goes into the deal doesn't get, blown up. And so, that's really the whole point, is to make sure you're protected. And, again, we've got, flat fee packages that really range, depending on what a client needs, that really covers the need of most any budget or any deal. And so, there's really not an excuse not to have one, in most cases. So, again, I'm glad to chat with anybody about what they're doing, and try to help them.
Awesome. So much value. Really appreciate that. Here's a question. So I just did the 100 unit for 8 million. 2 months later, I'm doing 75 unit for 4 million. Being that we just did a PPM and you kind of know how I structure things, does it get any easier, or do we have to start from scratch? What does that look like for your really big players that are doing one of these things every month or two?
No, absolutely. I mean, yeah, we do not have to reinvent the wheel. We're just, it's a little more involved than cutting and pasting, putting a new name in, because obviously,
Yeah.
every deal is a little bit different. But yeah, you're not having to, especially invest, clients that are, what we call as professional syndicators, or multi, they don't just do one and done, but they're doing multiple deals. I mean, yeah, we're certainly discounting our services because of volume deals that we're doing, and just you're not having to start from scratch. I mean, it's again, on deals that are substantially similar, I mean, you're not talking about a 30-day setup period. You're talking about a matter of a week or two, right? We've got to have another deal on the street ready to go.
It gets easier. It sounds daunting on the the first one until you've done it,
and by the time you get through the process, I mean, one of our objectives is obviously to educate our clients as well, so that, I mean, you don't have to be an expert like we are, but you'll know enough to where, oh, okay, this is how this works, and okay, this opens up a whole new financial path that maybe I didn't know existed, and certainly it's taken advantage of by several clients.
Very cool. And then Debbie would like to know if your real estate license extends to all 50 states, or how does that work? Do you partner with counsel in Wyoming or something if you're doing a deal out there? Or
we have a federal practice, and that's what we structure all these syndications as federally covered securities, and so we really can practice across the board. We deal with all 50 states, securities regulators, and obviously the SEC as well. So so we've got a nationwide practice there, and in some instances, like if there was some regulatory proceeding, say in Wyoming, we definitely would partner with local counsel.
Right.
Done that several times, but again, for the most part, we can cover anybody in the country.
Awesome. So guys, let's see. Last thing here, I'll just make sure that everyone's got your info. If you want to take a quick screenshot or jot this info down to get a hold of Darin or one of his partners at the various offices, and get out there and do some deals. That's why we keep showing it up to these things every month, is to arm ourselves with the tactical knowledge that we can implement. So this has been awesome. Make sure that nobody's got any parting shots here. Kelly says it's been interesting, very interesting, and thanks for sharing your knowledge and perspective. Kelly actually works with, Kelly, what's Andrew's company called? Remind me, because Darin probably knows. Do you know Andrew Cushman by any chance? Darin?
I've heard the name. I don't.
Yeah.
Know him.
PC Acquisitions. I mean, they're doing mega, like thousands of units. So she's got a great opportunity within that organization. Scott, what's up? Great to see you, sir. Sal, absolutely, tons of value here, and thank you all for hanging out with us. And I mean, this was a great couple hours, in my humble opinion. So,
yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
For sure. And Darin, we spoke earlier. We're going to be in touch. So,
absolutely.
There's other folks that are in this group that are doing some pretty cool stuff. So, I'd expect to hear from at least a handful of them over the coming months as well.
Perfect. Sounds great.
Awesome. All right, guys. I'm going to call it. Thanks again, everybody, and we'll see you next month.
Yes, sir. Thanks, everyone.
Cool. Later.
All right, we'll see you. Thanks, Darin.
Oh, Jamie, do you have anything? I'm sorry, I'm not going to sign off without you saying.
Oh, all right. Well, a couple things that just occurred to me. So one is, what I like about this format in the last 2 months, right, that we've got like kind of the sort of say like the nationally recognized guy first, and then, somebody who's in the business, like in the ins and outs of it. Like, we're literally helping people build their team, right? Last month you had John Brixon from Old Capital Lending. So you need a lender. There you go. This month we've got Darin Mangum. You need an attorney. There you go. Right. So I could speak personally to my experience with Darin so far. I mean, we're newer in our relationship, but knowledgeable, creative. He's come up with some really neat strategies for us within the fund that we're creating that we plan to syndicate with. So I mean, if he's offering up some time, it sounds like, take advantage if you're somewhere between pretty sure or, thinking you're going to, or sure, give him a call and talk through what this could look like for him. So, or with him. So, no, I think it's great. I think some of the questions were really essential. Like, what if you put this on Facebook or whatever? Because I even wrote down like, hey, I just killed it, got my investors X percentage. And the way I took that was, yeah, that's fine. You're not saying, how about you now? You're just putting out there what you do.
Business, right?
Right. Maybe a way, and I don't want to call it like a way around it, but it's by the law, at least all you're doing is advertising what you've done and promoting what you've done, not asking anybody to come to you. At least that's how I took it. Darin, you can tell me if I'm wrong on that. But no, that was it. I think you for the folks that stuck around, I really, really appreciate it. For those that watch us on the recording, again, Darin's there and a great resource. Darin, are you able to provide that? Well, can I use that PowerPoint and post it in our forums, or would you prefer we don't do that?
No, I'm glad to. You're happy to share it with whoever you'd like to.
Perfect. So we can get that out and push that to all the different groups that we have, and pretty much have content for folks. But no, Phil, I appreciate you jumping in with me on this again.
Dude, I can't thank you enough. This is so cool. I've got my little group. A lot of folks are here for my little group, but there's a ton that I don't know who they are. So, but yeah, Jamie, you're a hell of a host, and you struck gold with this idea, man. It's growing so quickly, and like you said earlier, it's not about trying to monetize outright. It's just you are creating the environment in which people can get together and figure stuff out.
But yes, no, I appreciate that.
Like I said, I could spend the next 5 years, and I'm not going to be a Darin. I would rather just find the Darin,
right,
and stick to what I do, which is, stumble around and look for deals. It's a little more methodical, I'll be honest. But, we all have our roles to play within this business. And like Maddie said, he got cut off. So I included it in the chat here, and somebody's like, oh, that was such a good thought. I was like, it wasn't mine, it was his. It's better to have the slice of watermelon than the whole grape. Yeah. And that's what commercial real estate is about. If you want to go own a couple of rentals, duplex, that's great. That you're going to be a lot better off than, your folks at the office that don't do that and look back 20 years from now. But if you really want a powerful and passive wealth building vehicle, figure out where you fit into this business, how you can provide value to a team in this business. And I mean, it can take you to the moon.
100%. Well said. Way to end it, Phil. It's like a mic drop. Look at you.
I think it was the cat behind him. I think.
Yeah. Cat drop.
I'll attempt to step up my game next month and get the tuxedo T-shirt.
I know Matty A's background was. I gotta level up my background. I gotta do something different.
I like it. I wonder
Right?
if it's always on, or if you like actually talking.
Maybe it's metaphoric, metaphoric, whatever that is.
Yeah. Okay.
No green screen.
Awesome.
No, I'm not copying Ian Sal, but whatever. All right, guys. Thank you again. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate all the kind words as well. And Darin, thank you again for all your time tonight. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you, guys.
All right, guys. Have a wonderful evening. What do I do? Like signing off. I'll see you guys. Thanks again.